Hi guys, Samantha from Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a bracelet using this technique that I've been playing around with. Basically it's a watercolor / marbling technique used to create kind of a scene. So I've played around with it. I'm going to be adding more red than I did in this project, and we're going to be using a nice large bangle to create an extending scene. Okay. So I'm using souffle today. You can use Polymer as well. You can just use about any brand that's strong enough to create a bracelet with. But I'm going to be using souffle today. So the first colour you're going to be working with is souffle canary. Then cherry pie, again souffle. Just getting it out of its packet. And pumpkin as well. There we go. And those are going to be our main colours. Bear in mind that I also am going to be using igloo, in other words white, and poppy seed, in other words black. Now the colours that I used in this project here I only made using these 4 colours. I wanted to add a little bit more red in, but keep in mind you can work with just these 4 colours. Okay, so now these colours recipes that I'm going to be doing are not very specific. I'm not going to write down recipes, I'm just going to show you how I put them together. They're very random, very freeform, they don't have to be exact. So first what I like to do, just separate out the black and white. So I'm just going to be taking our yellow, and we really don't need a lot of each colour. I'd probably say 1/8 of a block. I'm going to be cutting out 1/8 of a block for each of these. Same here. 1/8 of a 2-ounce block, that is. Okay, so that's going to be our main colour. This one is going to be our main colour, so keep those as they are. Then as for these ones, I'm going to be mixing in a teeny bit of white. I'll probably say this is about 1/20 of a block, roughly. And as for the black, you basically just want to pinch. So that's those ones. Okay, then basically for the red we're going to be doing almost the exact same thing. I'm going to cut out a bit, and I'm going to put aside a piece for us to use straight. Then I'm just going to grab a little bit of white, not too much. Keep in mind, if you add too much white, you can always add a bit more red. If you add in a bit too little white, you can always add in more. Very easy to work with. Okay, so there we go. Now, the reason I have not put black with the yellow is because it makes it kind of this greenish colour, and it's not very pleasant. So that's why the yellow is the only one that only has white added to it, whereas the other ones with the red and the orange have black and white colours. So I'm going to mix these all separately. I'm also going to condition these ones, and then we can come back and start working with our first technique. Okay, and here are the colours once mixed. So now what you want to do is you want to divide each of these colours in about half. Doesn't have to be exact. Put one piece to the side. So let me just make a spot for that. And just do that with all of them. You want to divide them roughly in half, and then just put a piece aside and keep another piece. And that's because we're going to be doing a background, like a sunset, and then the rest we're going to be using in a watercolor later on. Okay. Okay, same for these. Just divide those in half. And if your yellow happens to get dirty, like you can see here, it's a bit dirty, it's not completely clean, it's not a big issue. It really isn't, don't worry about it. It's actually a good opportunity to maybe use some bits of the souffle that might be a little bit dirty if you happen to have any. If you don't, that's fine. Okay, then just make sure to clean your fingers, and then roll each of these into, if you have them in a ball anyway, just roll them out into a sausage. As for the sheets, I'm not going to worry about those. I'm just going to roll the pieces that I have into a sausage, like so. And then what you want to do is just rip them, like so. And again, they don't all have to be the same length. Very random. And then once you've ripped them all, you will then stack them together, or not stack them, but just gently overlap them like so. And then you can take a little bit of your sausages and you can just overlap that as well, and just do that as you want. And then we're going to put that through our pasta machine as soon as we're done. Okay, and there we go. So you can see very freeform. It's going to kind of create a skinny blend, but it's more going to create a marbled effect than a skinny blend, which is exactly what I want. So again, you can see they're not all the same shape, they're not all the same size. I can even just overlap them a little bit to tidy up these edges. Again, very freeform. We want to create an interesting effect at the end of this. So then I do like to just quickly run over it with my roller before putting it through my pasta machine, just to try and get it to stick together. Okay, then I will run this through my pasta machine, and probably on about a millimetre thick setting. Then I'm going to take it down, bring it down to about 1/2 millimetre thick, just because I find it's easiest that way. Okay. And it's going to look like a mess in the beginning. Then you're going to fold it like so, and you always want to roll it through with the stripes facing up from the rollers. Okay. Take that, fold it again, always fold side down into the pasta machine. Okay, then roll again, and all these little bits on the edge you can just quickly tidy up. And roll again, and I'm just going to carry on rolling until I am happy with the blending effect that I'm starting to get. So you can see here we are starting to get kind of a blend, and we really do want to blend it quite far. It needs to look nice and smooth. So just continue rolling like so. And I'm not going to cut here, I do want to show you each roll. Quite important. And now bear in mind that we are going to need to stretch this out now so that we can put a backing on it, because it's most definitely not long enough to go across our cuff. So keep in mind that it's going to get blended even more. So I'm going to fold it one last time, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on these edges just to quickly tidy them up, and I'm going to try and squish it together, and I'll show you how to do it. So I generally put a little fold down the middle, and then hold each of this side and then press down. And now it's not supposed to come down in a nice neat effect, it can come down in a kind of rolled effect, and that will create folds in our piece, and that's going to create a more interesting effect once we roll this through again. So that's a good thing. You don't want them to be too big, the folds anyway, but you don't have to worry about it if it doesn't come down nice and neat. Mainly what we're trying to do is we're just trying to shorten this up, and this is a nice way to do it if you're looking for an organic finish. Mainly up until it's long enough for our cuff. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to roll it through again, and this time again we're going to be lengthening the stripes. And there we go, you can see how much more interesting that effect is. Okay, then we're going to check how much more I have to stretch it to make it go across the width of the cuff. And I'm going to just roll out a piece of black, because that's going to be our backing. Okay, and here's that piece, it's about 1/2 millimetre thick as well. Then place your piece of clay down, and just make sure to press it down so that there's no air bubbles. And then I'm going to run it through the pasta machine first on my millimetre thick setting. And again, we're lengthening the stripes. Okay, and if you see anything that got on the surface, make sure to get that off. Then I'm going to take it down one setting, and again, stretch the same way. And now each time I do this now, I do want to just double check how much longer I have to stretch it. I'll probably just run it through one more time, and that will be enough. Again, stretch it the same way. Right, and that should be long enough for our cuff. So just cut these ends, and all of the scrap will get used in our backing later on. Okay, and I do want to get rid of this heavy yellow down here because it's not quite as blended as I would like it to be. Okay, now I'm just going to double check that's the right size for the cuff. It can be a little longer than the cuff, that's fine. But basically, yeah, it's the right length. Okay, so this is our sky. Now you might notice with this one the sky is orange. That's simply because I didn't use the red colours. If you don't want your sky to look this red, just don't use the red colours. Now the tree over here, I'm not going to be using much red in it because I wanted to stand out against the sky. This one I feel like it blended in a lot, so I'm not going to be using nearly as much red as I did. So put this to the side, you're not going to be using it right now, that's going to be used later on. Right now we're going to be creating our watercolour. So those pieces that I told you to put to the side earlier, bring them back over, and I have this red but I'm not going to be using it. This is the red that was combined with the white. I just want to use the red that was combined with the black, not even the solid red, not using that. All the other colours that I bring them over, and that was a little bit left over. Okay, and then our other colours here, I'm going to just roll them out into a sheet too. Okay, and there we go. I'm going to run these through a little bit thinner. You want these to be nice and thin, probably about 1/2 millimeter thick. There we go. I'll pop them off to the side. And then you're going to run out a sheet of white and a sheet of black. Okay, and these sheets are about 1/2 millimeter thick as well. So just trim one to the right size, and that was the white. Then I'm just going to pop the black over that. Actually, wrong way around. Okay, and then just trim that to size. Again, the white does not have to be completely clean. This project doesn't require it to be completely clean. So if your pasta machine's giving a little bit of trouble, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be strenuously clean. Alrighty, there we go. Then I want you to run that through again, make it a 1/2 millimeter thick, like so. And there you can see the white got a little dirty there. That's fine, don't worry about it. Okay, I'll pop that to the side. And what I want you to do with this, actually no, we're going to be putting it on here. So take these sheets and chop them into pieces, like so. And chop them nice and thin, or not thin, but small. Just chop them into lots of little bits and pieces. Okay, that's one lot. And because it's souffle and I have not conditioned it too much, it shouldn't stick to itself too much, because you don't want these pieces sticking to each other. You want to take each, you want to just mix it into the next lot, and just continue through all of your colours and then mix that together. Okay, then just take that, mix it together a bunch, like so, and you can even go with your blade and chop through, just to make sure it's well blended together. Because you do want this fairly well mixed together. You don't want one lot of colour being dominant in one area and another colour being dominant in another area. You want it to be fairly well dispersed. Okay, there we go. Then I want you to flatten that out. Actually, don't flatten it out, just pop it off to the side there. Now I want you to just take that, sprinkle it over the surface, and then flatten it out and cover the whole area. And you shouldn't be able to see any white poking through. If you do, chop up some more and make sure to cover all of those gaps. Okay, then take that. I want you to roll that out just to flatten all those pieces into place. And I did trim the edges once I was done. Okay, then I want you to run that through the pasta machine till it is about 1/2 millimeter thick as well, which is the 7th setting on my pasta machine, like so. And that is what we are going to be working with. Okay, so now pop that to the side. That is your next veneer. The last thing we need to do now is create the brown for the tree trunk. So you're going to need a little bit of that pumpkin orange. Let me just grab a piece, 2. I'm going to grab 3 pieces. And then you're going to need varying degrees of black. So like a pinch for one, then like 2 pinches for the next. Really does not matter too much how much you add, but you want the colours to be pretty dark. So there. Okay, then mix those up. Okay, and here are the 3 browns that we've come out with. Okay, so put those to the side. We're going to use those in a little while. And bring over your original first veneer. This is going to be our base. So what I like to do is I like to plan things out before I start building. So I'd advise grabbing a ball tool or just something that you can use to trace, and I would create a very thin line on the bottom, and I tend to put the lightest colour on the bottom and just create kind of a horizon line, and that's where your leaves are going to go, these little bits down here. Doesn't have to be exact, but it just gives you an idea of where everything's going to go. Then I want to create a tree. Okay, and this will just give me an idea of where I need to place my brown, because the brown's going to go down first. And just create a bunch of trunks, and then also you want to then plan out whereabouts you want your leaves to go. So also just gently map that out. And all of this will get covered, so don't worry about it. We can also easily rub it out, so don't worry about making a little bit of a mess. Okay, and just repeat that. Here, before I switch off, because you can't really see that, let me see if I can direct that in the light there. So you can see there, very simple, but it's a good guideline for later on. Okay, so I've got a rough outline of where I want my trees to be. So now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the trunks. And now you might be wondering why we don't do the floor first. And the reason for that is because the trunks are going to be buried in leaf litter, and so we want the trunks to be done first, and then the little spirals tips of our trunk that are left over are going to be covered by little pieces of leaves on both ends. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So I'll just pop that here. Grab this. Just ball it up. You really don't need a lot. And you need to create very thin pieces. You can even use an extruder to do this if you want to save some time, but for those of you that don't use an extruder, just rolling it out will work as well. So there we go, I've got one colour there rolled out, and I want to do that for this one as well. There we go. Then once you've got 3 of each of these rolled out, just take a piece, and I'm going to be working, let's see, we'll work with this one down this end. And I want you to take that and just lay it down like so. Repeat for the other one and overlap them as well. Okay. And just repeat for the colours and carry on doing that until you've filled in the trunk. You want to have filled in wherever those lines that you put in are. Okay, then once you're done, press down firmly to flatten that out. Okay. And just make sure that you are happy with it. And I'm pretty happy with it. If I find that it's a little bit plain, what you can do is you can take a piercing pin, just a sharp tool of some kind, and you can kind of at an angle just trail down like so. And this will just kind of disrupt the clay a little bit and will just give a more interesting pattern. But that's completely up to you. If you don't want to, that's fine. Okay, but once you're done with that, take it, press nice and hard on that. And it's not going to have disrupted the pattern a lot, it's just going to have smeared the clay a little bit. Now this does not have to be completely smooth right now, by no means. It just needs to be somewhat flattened out. Now we're going to take this veneer that we made, and I'm just going to actually rip that in half, just to make it more manageable. And you're just going to rip off small pieces. And make sure that they're small. You don't want them to be too big. They're supposed to kind of resemble leaves. At least a little bit anyway. And then just patch those into the drawn line of the tree that you have. And just continue doing that until you fill the tree. And then basically you'll do the exact same thing at the bottom here. You'll fill in the horizontal line that you've created, and just repeat for all of your trees until you've created a whole bunch. And then what I also like to do for effect is I like to add just one or two of these, just kind of gently floating down so that it imitates leaves as well falling from trees. So you want to add those in as well. Okay, and so here it is, all finished. So there you can see how that looks. Now you want to take a moment and just spend a moment just checking and make sure that you're happy. I can see two areas that I'm not happy with. There's this one area here where a white spot's quite obvious. Just want to pop a bit there. And there's also a spot here where the white spot's quite obvious. Other than that, pretty happy. Now you have an option there, and the option is to either leave it like it is with all of these raised areas. Personally, I prefer to flatten it out because I do have a fair few fingerprints and also maybe a few nail marks as well. And just in general, I prefer it being flat. However, if you want it to be raised, then keep that in mind when you're creating the project, and just be careful to avoid fingerprints. Like if you're going to press in these tree trunks, use gloves, and actually when you're working in general, use gloves. But I'm going to flatten it, so I'm just going to use this piece of paper to just burnish it with my hands first. Then I'll go in with an acrylic roller and I will flatten it further. It does not have to be completely flat, I just want it nice and smooth. If we have a few domes where the raised parts are, that's fine, but they need to be nice and smooth. I don't want to see any cracks or anything like that. Okay, so I smoothed it out quite a bit. Now the last step is just going to be to grab another piece of plain printing paper, to lay this on top, and then to just do one final smooth. And this is just to make sure that I got it smooth the first time around, because you can get air bubbles trapped on the tile. This way I'm going to be running it from one side to the other, pushing out air bubbles, and that will be much easier to see whether we got a nicely finished piece. Because once this goes in the oven, it's in the oven and we can't re-smooth it. So it is very important that we get that right now. Okay, so now we're going to twist this around, and we should not be able to see any seams. Like I can see there's a bit here, I can see there's a bit there. There's one or two seams, but in general it looks pretty flat. Okay, now I'm not going to be putting this directly onto my bracelet. What I want to do actually is I want to take a bunch of our leftover clay that we've had and pop it onto our bracelet first, form kind of a base, bake that, pull it off, and then we're going to apply our front and our back at the same time to our bracelet, so we get a nice seamless finish to it. So I did want to flatten this out first so that it's all ready. But then what we need to do is we just need to lift it up off the paper carefully, because you cannot leave that on the paper, it will leach. Go pop that onto a ceramic or glass surface and leave it while we move on to the next step. Now I've got some leftovers here. Just colours and bits and pieces that we did not use. All of those scrap colours that we have, if you didn't use them, this is the best time to use it now. We don't need a huge amount. The scrap from the project should be enough. And if you want to use those colours again, that's fine, go pop them into a plastic bag. But this is a good way to use them, because then most of the bracelet is going to be made out of scrap and not proper clay that we could actually use. So now I want you to blend that into a full colour. Okay, and there we go. Now I want to apply that to my bracelet. Blank. Okay, just press that on. Make sure you don't have air bubbles. Okay. There we go. And of course, if you want, you can apply your veneer straight to this if you want. You do not have to go through this extra step. I just find that it turns out better when I do go through an extra step. But if you don't want to, you can skip it. Okay. And just trim around the edge, get rid of all of this excess clay. And the nice thing about souffle is that it's pretty flexible. So if we bake this for a full hour at souffle's recommended temperature, it should be pretty flexible after it is baked. And so we should be able to take it off the bracelet blank and actually lay it out flat so that we can apply our front and back, and it will just make the application of the finished veneer a lot easier. It'll come out a lot tidier, and in general you don't have to worry about it. Like you can see here, it's kind of coming out mucky as I'm trimming it. That's fine for scrap. I mean, if you mess it up at this point, it really does not matter, because you can just roll it into the pasta machine and you've maybe just wasted a few minutes just trying to trim it. If this is your final veneer, you've wasted literally an hour or two of work. So definitely would recommend doing it this way. Okay, there we go. The edges do not have to be perfect at this time, but do try to get them as smooth and close to the original shape as possible by just smoothing your finger along the surface. Do not worry about fingerprints. Don't have to worry, because this is going to get covered up. That's another reason why applying our front veneer later is going to be great, because we're going to lay this out flat, or at least somewhat flat, and we'll be able to burnish it with our paper again just to make sure that it's all nice and smooth. So in general, this is just a great way to do it. So now I'm going to pop this into the oven for a full hour at souffle's recommended temperature, just to make sure that it's nice and strong, and then we can move on to applying our front and back. Okay, and here it is. While it was still slightly warm, I peeled it off of the cuff. Do not peel it off while it is blazing hot, both because you might burn yourself and also because the clay can snap while it's hot. You want to peel it off while it's kind of lukewarm. So now we are ready to apply our front and back. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually apply liquid clay to this so that our veneers stick properly. And you want to apply, let's see, do I want to apply the front or the back first? think we'll apply the back last. Okay, so I'm using Sculpey Translucent Liquid Clay here, and I like using it because it's matte and it's quite sticky, which is something that I want for this project, because I don't want the liquid clay to be very runny. So just pop that on. We're going to have to do that to the back of the cuff, but you don't want to do that right now because it's going to make things very awkward to work with, because it's going to be all sticky and yucky to work with otherwise. Then I want you to just brush that over the surface nice and evenly across the entire cuff. And then when we're done, we can start applying our first veneer. And there we go. Now we're going to take our first veneer and I'm going to apply it to the front here. I'm just trying to line it up. There we go. Okay. And then we're just going to wrap that around, and while you're wrapping, just try to squish out air bubbles, and yes, you are going to get fingerprints at this point. Do not worry about that. First off, it's souffle, it doesn't retain fingerprints very well, and also we can burnish that out. Okay. There we go, and I went a little off course there. Okay, pretty happy with that. Now I just want to fold this over. Don't do it too hard, I just want to see what we're going to be trimming away and if I'm happy with it, because you can place it again. But I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, and then just place that over the side as well. Okay, and if you have a crack, just gently pinch and smooth. Okay, then where's my blade? Here we go. Trim this side. Okay, and also trim this side. Okay, then as for these edges, they're a little bit different, so I actually like to use a craft knife to trim these. It just gives me a little bit more flexibility. Okay. Okay, and that's as far as I tend to go. And just smooth it out if you have a few nicks. There we go. And then just carry on doing that for your whole cuff. Okay. Now we can move on to applying our background. So put that to the side, and I've actually got the scrap clay here from the project, and I don't want to waste it. It looks really pretty. So I'm going to take the scrap pieces that we trimmed off of our cuff, and some of the scrap from the actual cuff, and I'm just going to roll that out, and it's so that I can make this wider and longer for our cuff. Okay, there we go. And take that, press that down, roughly trim those edges, and now you could also just put a plain backing on if you wanted, but I did have the scrap, so I want to see if I can apply this to the back because I think it will look nice. Okay, so now I'm going to run that through on my millimeter thick setting, and I'm going to be widening it, so I'm going to be running it from this end to this end. Like so. I'm going to do it again, one setting down. Okay, and that is now wide enough for my cuff, so now I'm busy going to lengthen it. Take it down a setting and lengthen, and that should be enough for our cuff. So put that to the side, and we're going to apply some liquid clay. Okay, then once you've rubbed that over the surface, take this And I'm going to position that. Okay, and it's going to be hard to show you, but basically I'm doing what I did with the previous veneer. Just busy pressing that on. Okay, and you can reposition it at any point you want. And just to make sure that you press that on properly. Like so. Okay. Then lay down one side and again trim it like you did before. Okay, then that's it for the edges. Now I need you to quickly just brush around the sides, make sure that you don't have any excess clay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're gently going to start pinching these two veneers up. Like so. Do this very slowly, very gently. But I want you to do this for all the sides. And what that's going to do is going to hide this brown, line over here, and it's just going to join the two veneers together, creating a very strong bond between them. And it's also going to create a nice beveled edge, which is something that I like on my bracelets. So just do that a whole way around and then I'll show you how to smooth it. Okay, and there we go. So now you want to just run your finger over the surface very gently and slowly, and you're almost going to just burnish this with your finger. And this will just smooth it out. Okay, so do that the whole way around, and this will mean that you have a nice smooth edge. And this is why I wanted to use the scrap along the edge, because it just makes a nicer join, and it adds some colour. And also it means that you don't waste any scrap clay. There's like barely any scrap clay for this project. Okay, now we need to smooth out any fingerprints. So with the hand that I'm using to hold my cuff, I have put some gloves on so that I am not going to be creating fingerprints while I am smoothing away any obvious pieces. Okay, and you'll do this for the front and the back, and then when you are done, pop this into the oven for a full hour at souffle's recommended temperature, and I'll show you what it looks like when it is done. Okay, and here it is out of the oven. So, being that this is souffle clay, we do not need to sand it now. However, if you choose to use a different brand such as Primo, Fimo, Kato, any brand that doesn't have a texture to it, you are going to want to sand this profusely. But since it's souffle, we have this beautiful kind of leather suede finish to it, which is really nice. So you can leave it matte like this, that's completely up to you, but I like to use a little bit of Renaissance wax just to give it a light sheen. It is not necessary because you do not need to seal this, but if you would like a nice light sheen but still retain the texture of the clay, this is a great way to do it. I would not recommend using matte or gloss varnishes, and especially not resin, just because due to the clay's texture, it doesn't look very good. But giving it a light burnish with some wax brings out those colours, makes it more vibrant, while still retaining the fact that it still feels like suede or leather. So I'm just busy brushing on a little bit of wax on the inside and outside. And now after we've buffed this, bear in mind that the wax is going to be still a little sticky, and so you're going to need to leave this for about an hour at least before actually wearing it, because that wax could be sticky and it can get on you. Okay, now I'm going to take a buffing wheel. You can use a soft cloth to do it. Let me show you how to do that quickly. So here's a nice soft cloth. All you do is you buff like so. And now it's not going to give you as shiny a finish as it would if you had used the buffing wheel, as I'll show you in a moment, but it will buff the wax in and it will make it look quite nice. But I'm going to be using a buffing wheel. And now I like to have a look at whether I like the shine on this or whether I like the shine that we achieved from the cloth. And I actually prefer the cloth in this case. So if you don't like the buff from the Dremel, just pop some more wax on there and then buff with the cloth. And the reason I like the cloth is because it gives a more matte finish while still giving a little bit of a sheen. But the wax is mostly there to bring out the colour. Okay, and then when you're done with this, just pop it aside for an hour, or you can drill holes like I'm going to do now. But basically before you wear this, you must leave it aside for about an hour just to make sure that that wax dries. Okay, now I'm just going to grab a pin drill very quickly because I want to attach a clasp, because since this is a souffle, it is fairly flexible. Not incredibly flexible, but flexible enough that you're probably going to want to attach a clasp. So I'm just going to drill a hole in here, and you'll do the same on the other side. You see, very easy to drill. Just run through a few times just to clean out the hole. Okay, do the same on the other side. Okay. Now you're going to need a few jump rings, probably about 6 I'd say. And you're just going to take one, open that up, slide that into your hole, close it. Okay, then you're going to take another one, attach that to your clasp, slide that on. And what I like to do is I like to do 2 jump rings, just because I find that looks better. Do the same for the other side. Okay, and there we go. Then just make sure that you can close it. And there we go, you've got your clasp. So that is basically it for today's tutorial. I do hope that you enjoyed it. It's quite fun. It's a very simple landscape. Keep in mind, if you do not want to make a bangle, you can very easily create pendants like so. And also, if you wanted to create this one, just leave out the red. You can see there that there's a bit of a difference. I find that the trees stand out and it looks more autumny, but again, if you want to, you can leave out the red and just use the yellow and orange and black and white if you're pressed for not having too much clay, or if you just like that colour palette better. It's completely up to you. So basically that is it for today's project. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Also bear in mind that using this technique you can do other landscapes, like maybe you do want to do a winter one. Actually, that's a good idea. What you could do is you could do a series of bangles. You could do spring, summer, autumn and winter. You could also try and do like 4 different trees on a bangle. For each season, and then the background could just be kind of a neutral colour, like just plain blue sky. Completely up to you, but there's a lot of different ways that you could do this. So play around, have fun, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.